Everybody, well, welcome here. It's Connor Tuck here, president for Greater Pennsylvania Region YP. I'm here joined with Riley Ringold out of Topeka, Kansas. So we're going to jump right in. So Riley, give us a little, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been with Keller Williams? How long you've been in real estate?
For sure. Yeah, I've been in real estate for 5 years now at Keller Williams since day one. Serving the Northeast Kansas, and I've been doing it for a while and loving every second of it.
So 5 years. So, and you had just mentioned to me before we hopped on here that you're 28. So what did you do before real estate?
Prior to that, straight out of high school, I worked with this kind of entrepreneurial guy that cleaned carpets. He did house clean outs for repos. Did that for a couple of years during high school. Graduated. I actually went to automotive school, graduated with my automotive degree, and then went to welding school and graduated with my welding degree. After doing both of those for 8 hours a day, I decided I don't want to work that hard. So I got a job at O'Reilly selling, auto parts, jumped from there and went into a more specialized job. It was called 4x4 Land. They sold specialized off-road vehicle parts. Was there for about a year and a half. And then, one day my dad just, he's been an agent since like 96. And he took a 5-year hiatus. And about that time in 2017, he had jumped back into it and, told me I should probably start thinking about, starting a family and finding a career instead of working paycheck to paycheck. So that's kind of what brought me into real estate in Keller Williams.
That's super interesting. So you went through a very more technical training in a very different industry. And I guess, you kind of touched on it there, but I guess maybe what was it about that automotive circuit that you really weren't going to? I mean, you kind of talked about it like working really hard. Was it a matter of, it was just like the physical labor involved sometimes with that automotive world, or what was kind of that transition to make you be like, I enjoy that, but not the thing that I want to do long term? What was that decision kind of?
Right. So yeah, I really like the technical side of it where, it was nuts and bolts going together. I've kind of got a technical mind and I love seeing how things, come apart and go back together. But man, it was just working out in the heat in that shop with grease and oil and everything on you. Same thing with the welding. It was fun to learn that skill and just to kind of build stuff from scratch. But I mean, you're there in front of that arc for 8 hours a day, laying down hot metal, and you're covered in leather, and you're trying to protect your skin, but at the same time, I mean, you're 100 degrees all day long behind your mask, and it was just tough. So I thought, I like doing that stuff. I can do that stuff on the side if I want to do that on the side. I'm skilled in it. I've learned it. But let's take my 40-hour work week a different direction.
So I would imagine you're the type of person that when your car starts making a noise and you have to pull over for a second, you don't go into the immediate panic mode and call AAA. It's more of the actual open the hood and let's take a look at things.
Yeah.
Okay. So good life skill to take.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the things I always like to know too, because so many people get into real estate from different walks of life, right? You have some different things. I know a lot of people in the service industry, they dealt with people a lot. So they were able to take that soft skill from their old job into their new job. So what would you say some of the skills that you maybe learned in those other jobs? And in a weird way, maybe how do those apply now to real estate?
Well, and those two, just going through schooling, I don't know. I mean, I had to learn a lot. So I was always looking at diagrams. I was always, trying to figure stuff out without actually seeing it. I think that goes into learning markets, because you're just looking at numbers from a broad scale and really trying to figure out, where the market is going, where has it been, what does this mean for my buyer or seller? So I think abstractly that kind of correlates. And, with the sales, I say I was in sales, but I was just an order taker. Somebody would come up to the counter and say, hey, I need this part. There wasn't, I mean, you could upsell the rag and the hand cleaner, but there wasn't any sales to it. So I kind of learned the difference between, what a sales job is once I got into real estate versus what I was doing before and how not to be. Somebody needs a fiduciary. This is the level of service you've got to give. And knowing what I had went through before, I knew what the, above baseline had to be.
Interesting. So kind of what that expectation was, and then how to go one step above it.
Exactly.
And then I love the markets part of it too, because it's sort of a market is just, it's just this bubbling pot of stats, but they're just bubbling in all these different directions and they're not really correlated. And it takes someone to look at everything and be able to make inferences about it. And then not only be able to find and analyze those inferences, but then be able to actually relay them properly through marketing or through consistent touches to your database to actually inspire action and to try and change some mindset. Okay, so I like that. So let's talk a little bit about once you get into real estate. So you've been with KW 5 years, right? You've been joined and everything. Have you been working primarily with your dad, or you guys kind of been doing things a little bit separately, or how have you kind of been working that?
No, yeah, we've been working together since I started 5 years ago. He actually had, because he was in the business since '96, he knew a lot of people in the business, and there was a team leader that had came to him and said, "Hey, you should join my team if you've thought about getting back into real estate." And so he joined the team. He brought me along. I joined the team too. There was about 3 other agents, I think, on the team and the team leader. So primarily, how I got my feet off the ground. I started coming to the office there for a while. I was still part-time at my other job, and tried to balance that as best I could. The team leader paid for Zillow leads, and whenever those Zillow leads would come in, it would actually call, and every single agent on the team's phone would ring. The first one to pick it up got the lead. So I just trained myself to be really good about picking up the phone. I don't know, it was probably 2-3 months in, I closed my first deal, or actually got my first lead. We went and showed one house to the Zillow buyer. They wrote a contract, and 30 days later, I got my paycheck. After that paycheck came in, and I saw it. I was coming from a $14 an hour job. So that one paycheck from one phone call and one showing really just blew my mind. And after that, I said, okay, I'm gonna, jump ship here. I'm gonna go full time into real estate, get rid of my part-time job. This is what I'm gonna do.
It's funny how one of those first commission checks can do
Oh
that
yeah.
to you,
Oh
right?
yeah.
We're always like, oh, I would love a steady income and I would love all this. And I'd love to know where my paycheck's coming from. But then you get out into a sales and variable income model, and then you see what that is, but then you also correlate the work and you're like, well, I have no problem doing the work.
Yeah.
So if that's going to be the outcome now, I have a much more direct translation in terms of work effort and output and intelligence and the actual, compensation that we get back. So
And I
I
feel
love that.
like I'm sorry. And I feel like in that job that I was at before, I gave 110% effort, thinking that someday, somehow I would, get up to a level. It was a locally owned company. So it was the one guy that owned it. He was in the building every single day doing what he did. And I just thought, if I show him that I can work hard, I might, earn a new management position here. I might get another pay raise. And, once I started doing real estate part-time, it made sense to me that if I'm going to put it 110, 120%, I'm going to get that back in my pay scale versus what I'm doing here. I could do, as little or as much work as I want to do, and my pay is going to stay the same.
That is, I think, probably the biggest way to talk to someone to get them to look at real estate seriously.
Yeah.
I really think it is. I think there's so many people out there in, kind of middle America that are in a job that pays them just enough to keep them happy, but not enough for them to really exercise what their life's going to be. And they go there and they do exactly the 81% that they need to do just to not get fired or get in trouble, but they're not really advancing a lot.
Right.
So I think that it's almost like that first commission check was sort of like an early success that started to propel you. What would be, if you had to kind of go back a little bit to maybe that first year or maybe that first 18 months or whatever your kind of period of initiating into it would be, talk to me about something maybe that was maybe a failure, right? Or I don't ever really love to use the word failure, but let's call it as an opportunity for growth, maybe, or something you maybe would have done a little bit differently, or maybe there was an opportunity that presented itself that you didn't take seriously, but you wish you could have. What was something maybe you not regret, but you see what I'm trying to pull out here?
No,
A little
for
bit.
sure.
What was something early on like that?
So once I got into real estate full time, I didn't necessarily go into the office every day. I set up my office at home. I tried to do the from home work. Our team was sending out a lot of direct mail. We were making phone calls. So doing that at home, I thought, man, this is awesome. I can stay home. I can get up when I want to get up. I can take breaks when I want to take breaks. After a month or so of that, I quickly found out that I didn't work well in that situation. I had too much free time, and going into the office really set my mindset to tell myself, hey, it's time to work. It's time to put your nose to the grindstone and make this money. This is your new entrepreneurial business that you're starting and you're going off to make money on your own, you're not going to do it by doing the dishes or, switching the laundry or doing all that stuff that you do at home. So I started going to the office, set up a desk at the office, and it really started to climb from there. But that was the first early, I would call it a failure for sure. I thought, I was naive in thinking that, I could reach the top or progress at all from working at home.
Yeah, I'm smirking a little bit as you're saying those things because man, if that wasn't me too. I mean, early on, you just like I can work from wherever, I can go from here and here and here, but I'm a big proponent of get to the office, get dressed for work, go to the office, try and get there at the same time every day, right? Try and make a very habitual routine. And it's really even like that drive into the office. You're kind of recalibrating a little bit, right? And you're setting your mindset for what the day is going to be. You kind of have your checklist, you go through it. So I love that. So I'm going to go a little bit into a slightly different realm here. In Keller Williams, we talk a lot about, the one thing and, start with why and all these things. And sales is like that, right? You need to connect the boring routine of it, what sales should be, from a lead generation and a lead follow-up perspective. There's a lot of times where you need to correlate that to something bigger, right? Something to drive you, something that kind of deep down, you're like, yeah, I am going to stay out for that evening showing a little farther than I'd like to, because I gotta bring the bacon home for this, right? So talk to me about sort of your why with real estate.
Well, it started as just, growing something from nothing. I think that was a big part of it. I wanted to be that success story. I wanted to show people, especially whenever you get into it, you start reading self-help books and, it really opens up a mindset that you've never even thought of before, depending on where you've come from. But it started with, I want to grow something out of this. Now, 5 years later, it's really, setting something up, a legacy, for my family. I'm 28 years old. I've got a 3-year-old, a 9-month-old, and one on the way due in January.
Wow,
And
congrats.
I'm really building this team and thinking of real estate as a business rather than just an income, because I could work for the next 30 years collecting an income from buying and selling real estate for people. But what I'm really focused on now is creating the team aspect of it, so that at some point, I can walk away and just, do CEO administration stuff for the team. And I've got this income coming in. That way I can spend time with the kids. I'm really big proponent of, and this is new within the last 2 years, of investing in real estate. Too many agents are out there making an income that they have no idea where it's going. And if they just set aside a little bit of it to invest in the one thing that they tell people to buy all the time, there would be, it's such an easy way to grow wealth. So my why is my family, building something for them, showing them, I lead by example. So if I want them to grow up and, be successful and, be disciplined and reach goals, I've got to do that as well. So that's what drives me to go to the office every morning and make my 100 phone calls every day and close my however many units every year. I want to show them this is where I started and this is what I've become and this is how I did it. And as they grow up, I want to live that and I want them to see that as well.
I mean, you're legacy building.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, you're building something that potentially could outlast you, right? Something that could be going down the road and your kids can be proud of you for it. Like you said, you could take a step back at some point, be more of that CEO, kind of buy that time back basically through leverage. So I love that. And one thing I thought was funny, we're going to take a quick pivot here, but you had mentioned, kind of some people in the self-help books. I will tell you that when you're depressed, they're called self-help books. And when you're not, they're called personal development books.
There you go. Yeah.
Somebody told me that. I said, oh, interesting. I said, I go there for personal development now.
Yeah.
There was a time, trust me, I needed as a self-help section very early on in the real estate game, but now the personal development. Speaking of books, what's your favorite? You got a favorite business book or got a favorite book that you've maybe one that you've recommended before, something like that?
Tim S. Grover. I'm reading his winning book right now, but Relentless was an outstanding book. A lot of these personal development books are high level, this is what you got to do to win. He's kind of nitty gritty about winning and what it takes of, doing the hard things every single day until you're tired and you're bleeding and you're scraped up, and keep doing those things. And I think that has a lot to do with how I've gotten to where I've gotten. It's just grinding those hours on hours of, phone calls to contacts to appointments to closings. It doesn't stop. And it does, I mean, so everybody takes breaks, right? You get this roller coaster of real estate, and you get really busy and you feel really good when you've got 14 things under contract. And then the next 2 months, you don't have anything because you stopped doing that hard stuff. So I think that book by Tim S. Grover, Relentless, really hammers that down for me as far as just staying in the grind.
I think that's a catch-22 that a lot of agents find themselves in, right? They go really hard in lead gen for a while, they get a ton under contract, and then they feel busy, not effective at the end of the day because they're deal managing and kind of keeping the clients in line and dealing with stuff that probably their leverage should be dealing, but they want to feel involved. And then they're not hitting their calls. They're not supporting the pipeline going down the future. And it's Tim S. Grover, right? Relentless.
Yep.
Okay. I like that one. I'm going to have to check it out. So let's talk about your support system, right? The idea of self-made man, I think sometimes can be a misnomer, right? Assumes that you did everything on your own. I think the only self-made men are Alaskan bush people that have never come in contact with somebody, right? We all win within a circle, right? So who's been there for you from the beginning? Who's been one of those people that's just been instrumental? I know you talked about your dad a lot, but would you call it him, or would you say that there's somebody else maybe in tandem with him? Or
no, I think my dad for sure. He was a broker way back in the day. He's been doing this forever. He's got the relationships throughout the community. He's really taught me that everything that I know in the business. He was a MAPS coach for a while, so he's got everything that I need and has brought everything to the table. But I would say, my brokerage and our market center has been a key to that as well. I got real big into Bold, and I think I've gone to Bold 4 or 5 times. That has been instrumental. Every time that I've gone, I've come away with something new. Because every time you go, your business is in a different realm. So I think Bold is detrimental to newer agents to figure out, what exactly to do day to day to succeed in real estate. And then I got into, the ALC. Started doing the productivity chair is what I was for a while. And I started doing trainings around the 411 and around just general productivity of newer agents. And I think really teaching that stuff helped me keep myself accountable to, following in that line as well. So I think the market center and kind of inviting me to be a leader in the market center really helped me grow throughout the years as well. So yeah, I think my dad and the market center would be the answer to that question.
Let's keep talking a little bit about that advice component, right? You had mentioned, being able to put on trainings and to talk to people in your market center about different things like that. This is a setup that I've always liked from a financial perspective. And it's one of these things where it says, okay, you have 3 children, or you have 2 children and another on the way, right? Imagine they're all 18. Right. And you can give them nothing, no money. You can't give them any money, you can't give them any assets, you can't give them anything like that. The only thing you can give them maybe is just one guiding principle to live their life by, or one big piece of advice to live their life by. If that's all you could give them at 18, what would you give them? And almost reflectively, what would you give yourself? And would those be different?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's that's a tough one. I would say it's start now. I feel like, looking back, if I was 18, I was living for the weekend. It was just a good time. Whereas really, if I knew now if I knew then what I know now about, real estate and investing and, starting a career and doing all that stuff, I would have started doing that a long time ago. There's so much opportunity, especially when you're at that age, to get in and mentor somebody. That's something that I wish I would have done when I was younger, is actually like followed somebody around for a year and a half to mentor them and learn the tricks and that sort of thing. Whenever you had the time to do that, right? I can't step away now and, go do that with somebody. So I think finding a mentor and really learning some new skills and, learning new mindsets from what you've known in the past would be really one takeaway that, I would want to share with my kids at 18.
Yeah. So just get started in something. Just
Yeah,
start making some mistakes, right? So you'll get
for
some
sure.
positives as you come with it, and try and find somebody who can kind of guide and help you along that path.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, there's a lot of people, it's very easy to get into real estate and it's very hard to stay in real estate, right? That year 0 to 1 is kind of this exciting time. You're learning a lot, but maybe the deals aren't flowing. And then there's a lot of people that have to make a decision, right? Between year 1 and 2. Am I going to stay in this? Do I see myself making it in this? Or do I really need to kind of scale back and maybe be more realistic about what I am and who I am? So how did you make it kind of in that year 1 to 2 transition? Was there a point, or was there something that happened where you decided, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to do something with this. I'm going to be able to make something. What was that like? Or how did that kind of transition happen for you?
Yeah. So my dad and I were on that team for, I don't know, probably about 6 to 8 months. And then we decided that the value that we were getting from the team wasn't what we were um, okay with as far as the splits we were getting on the team. So we decided to leave that team and start our own team. So for the past, I guess it's been 4 years now, we were a team of two. And then we slowly started adding people on there. Now we've got an in-house admin. We've got 4 or 5 buyers agents, and then me and him are the lead listing agents. But just that transition right there was a big growth, because I knew from that point that I couldn't just rely on these Zillow leads coming in. And I remember distinctly being on that team, waiting for leads to come in because I didn't know what to do. So I talked to my dad and he said, well, go to these other agents and see if anybody's, got any old clients or anything that you can call, because they might have just a list of phone numbers where they don't have the time to dive into it. So I did. I found one top producing agent in our office that had a list of just old, I don't know if they were signed calls or if they were just internet leads, but it was names, phone numbers, all printed out on this Excel spreadsheet. There was probably, I don't know, 50 to 100 names on here. And I just started dialing, right? And I probably closed 2 or 3 deals from that list alone. But that really opened my eyes to know, there is a ton of business. Anywhere you look, there's going to be a ton of business. You just have to go find it. I think that, too many agents get into it thinking that it's going to be easy. Their phone's going to ring off the hook. But you've got to really grind your community. You've got to talk to everybody that you know to see who they know that might be, buying or selling real estate in the future.
Yeah. So I heard a couple things there. I mean, one was being self-aware enough to know, okay, I'm in a team structure right now that may not be supporting where we want to go, right?
Yeah.
And matching splits and value and compensation. I mean, those are huge things to consider. I mean, I personally have been on 3 different teams, and each of one of them was for a very different reason, and each one of them have treated me very differently. And you're right, you got to kind of find that Cinderella slipper, and sometimes you can't find it elsewhere. If you guys have a unique value proposition, I mean, you guys are a father-son team, right? So that's just a different dynamic than a lot of other groups have. So to be able to go off and say, hey, this is what we offer. And I think we may need to create it ourselves, kind of going back to this build a business, start from scratch,
Yeah.
type mentality. I think that's hard to do for a lot of younger agents, right? I think a
Yeah.
lot of younger agents just think, a lot of times they get into this one brokerage and it is just, that's how things are. Or I get onto one team and that's just how teams are, right? There's not really this big difference. Let's talk about your team for a little bit. You guys said you have about 4 or 5 buyers agents that are working for you. What's your value proposition to them? I mean, if I was a buyer's agent, right, and I'm in your market and I was looking around for teams, why would I join your team?
Yeah. So we've built the systems. The past 4 years, Dad and I have been doing this alone by ourselves. And so, from the time we built the lead generating systems that we have today, but from the time we put somebody into our CRM, we've got 10 different plans that you can put that one client on to make sure they're being touched throughout the year. Those are, the thousands of emails that we've pre-written and put into the CRM, the thousands of PDF documents that we've got in our Google Drive that you can print out and mail. We've got a whole filing cabinet full of postcards, with our sign call number on it. We've got all of that marketing and lead generation knowledge to really bring your sphere of influence, some value. We're doing 4 big marketing events a year that any new agent coming on will be able to invite their SOI to, really get to know that person and show them value. Um, you know, and we've got the systems with our admin as well, who is from the day you put somebody under contract, handling everything up until close. So that's not anything that you have to do. And that kind of takes the roller coaster of real estate out of it. You are going to be the face and the ears and the mouth of the transaction. You're still going to be your client's fiduciary. But at the same time, you don't have to call the lender. You don't have to call the title company. You're not setting up inspections. You're not calling the appraiser. You're not doing any of that. You're focusing on your clients, your lead generation, and really just narrowing down on growing your business, instead of, watching it close all the way.
All the other stuff, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I always say there's basically 3 parts of a real estate agent's job, right? It's meet new people, stay in touch with the people, and close the deals for the people, right? That it basically, since realtors have been around, that's what we've been doing. And there's a lot of new agents that, having enough value to offer their sphere is not easy, right? They don't have a lot of money most times to put on client events. So for you guys to offer that, to come in and immediately invite them to 4 legitimate quarter events, I mean, I think that's great. And then you're right, on the back end, the close the transaction part, a lot of new agents, they get gray hairs because they're terrified that they're going to screw something up in that transaction coordination phase, right? So to be able to say, hey, we'll offer a lot of value for your sphere, for you to come in, we'll give you all the systems and tools to flourish. We'll also help you all with the back end. So all you got to do is go out, continue to be a good person, a good friend, a good resource for your sphere, show homes, write your contracts, things like that, and move forward.
Exactly. And going back to your 3 that you just just talked about, the meet new people, that's one that we do have, lead generation tactics to bring people into the CRM. But at the end of the day, we're taking care of the middle one and the last one, right? We're taking care of staying in touch with people, and we're taking care of the closing. We still want every agent on our team to be able to bring in and make new business. That way, at some point, if they do want to go off on their own, they have all the tools in their tool belt to go and get new business. And I think that's a big part of our team, is just educating them on, what to do to go find that business on their own.
Yeah, you don't want them to stay dependent, right? You want them to have some independence, but also work towards interdependence, right? That thought that I, as an individual, this team as an individual entity, our 2 combined forces is greater than the sum of its parts, right? I think that's a great, So we have our last just basically couple minutes here, last 4 minutes. And what I just want to ask here real quick, what's next for your team? You guys have spent a lot of time these past 4 years really solidifying. You got the systems down, the lead gen, a lot of that stuff good. You hired your admin, you've started bringing on some buyers agents. I mean, you've expressed, at least to me, some interest so far in what comes down the road, maybe the slight step back, the CEO, the management side of things. But what's the next maybe 2, 3, 5 years of your business look like? Do you guys have you been working on that? What's kind of been the buzzwords there?
Yeah. So lately we're really trying to narrow down our splits and a value proposition to our agents. So we're kind of recreating that right now. We're also working on an accountability system of team standards. We have run into some issues in the past with people coming on the team, not living up to a certain standard that we have, but we didn't have it on paper. So we've got it on paper now, and we've got a good tracking system. So we're trying to build that out, so that we can bring on new cappers onto the team. We want to bring new cappers on, and something that we also want to do is kind of, me and my dad and my brother, who's also on the team, are big into the rental real estate right now. We've, all within the past 3 years, bought a couple doors here in town. And I think that that's something, as part of the value that I wanted to add to our agents, to the team, is, every team meeting that we have, once a month, we'll talk about investing in real estate and see if we can bring people onto our team that have the same values around, wealth building and investment rental properties. So that's another, if we had multiple investors on the team, which right now we do, but if we had more, then as a seller value proposition, we would even have a stronger hand in saying, hey, these are your couple options. Option A, B, and C. Option D is we write you a cash offer right now. Or, it just adds so much more creativity, other than, I'll list your house and we'll get it sold that way. We want to add more value to our sellers and our buyers. I mean, to help investors buy and sell property. So I think that's kind of sort of the direction that we're growing, is growing the team to support kind of the team values of wealth building on the team, and then supporting our buyers and sellers in a different realm that other agents may not be able to.
And just like you're inspiring the agents who are on your team to be real estate investors, the agents on your team can then inspire their clients to become
Right.
real estate investors, right? I mean,
Right.
I'd love to be able to tell everyone that, buys a house. I forget who said this. It might have been David Voorhees, but basically he was like, I don't want to have to sell any of my buyers' properties ever. I want them to always be able to keep those properties as potential rental income producing properties down the road. He's like, I'll rental list them for you, but I don't want to list them for you,
Yeah,
right? I think
I love that.
that's a really great mantra to have. So, well, we're basically right here at the end of our time. Riley, I really appreciate you hopping on with us here. This has been super informative. For anybody out there listening to us, this is just kind of like a final little thing. If you could write a book today, what would you write it on?
Ooh. It would probably be about, real estate investing or personal finance. I mean, that's something else that nobody tells you as an entrepreneur, is you're going to have to really figure out personal finance, especially, whenever you get into getting an LLC and an S corp, and, you've got a budget to produce every month, and that it's a lot. And, I'm still learning it every day. But, like they say, if you teach something, you're going to learn it 10 times faster. So that's probably two things that I would probably write a book about today, even though I'm not, 100% steadfast in, what I've learned so far. I think that it would help me grow if I were to do that.
That is a great answer. And I think there are a lot of agents in our wheelhouse and in our bracket that probably feel the same.
For sure.
So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording, but thank you, Riley. Thank you to everybody listening in, and we'll stay tuned for next week. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Connor.